we're really glad you've joined us tonight, and thank you very much for taking the time. This is going to be our fifth version, or fifth time we've run the program, and we're really excited about the possibility of running it for a fifth time. So, Trina, do you want to do a land acknowledgement and so on? How would you like to do that?
If you could do that, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. So, well, I'm not sure where you are because we are all in different places, but I happen to be in Kitsilano in Vancouver, in this dimly lit room you're looking at now. And I happen to live on the unceded historic ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, which is the Tsleil-Waututh, the Musqueam, and the Squamish peoples. And so again, welcome. And I'm Laurie Anderson. I'm an adjunct professor in the faculty, and I'm the executive director of SFU's Vancouver campus. So why don't we ask Charles and Hae-Sun to introduce themselves too?
My name is Hae-Sun Bai, professor in philosophy of education in the faculty of education. That's it. I'm one of the three coordinators of this program. So my colleagues, co-coordinators are Laurie Anderson and Charles Scott. Charles?
And I, surprise, surprise, I'm Charles Scott most of the time, except when I'm not looking. And I am, like Laurie Anderson, I'm an adjunct professor in the Faculty of Education. I've been with the faculty. I joined the faculty as a graduate student, and I've continued on as an adjunct professor and instructor, and I've been associated with this program since its beginning, and we are passionate and love working in this program and being part of the SFU Faculty of Education. Pleased to meet you all.
So Charles or Hae-Sun, would you like to move on to an overview of the program? Because I've been doing quite a bit of talking. So would one of you like to pick up the baton?
Well, as indicated, our program was established by three of us some years ago. This will be a fifth cohort, and we put on one of these just about every second year. And our experience has been just totally positive. And what we are seeking to do is really creating a holistic graduate program that involves awakening of all dimensions of a human beingness. Academy tends to be very much into the brainy matter, so to speak, as a metaphor. And the need for holistic education is very much felt. All those 25 years that I've been involved in teaching at SFU convinced me that it was time when we found this program together, convinced me that we need to have a graduate program that really educate educators. And it's not just school teachers, anybody involved in the business of education, which includes parents. Something about holistic way that we approach educating, because there's many dimensions of a being which have been marginalized in the interest of academic education. So that's the beginnings. And at the time, as Laurie typically points out, and as many of you are aware, the interest in mindfulness has been taking off. Today, I don't know who doesn't know mindfulness, but the three of us and our close colleagues felt that just talking about mindfulness itself or founding a program on mindfulness is very limiting. And all three of us are quite steeped in Buddhist literature, along with the other wisdom traditions. And so for us, separating out mindfulness is not quite kosher. I guess I'm jumping the cultural metaphors here, cultural language, but oh wow, I live with a Jewish husband. Anyway, so we wanted as I said, a holistic program that involves cultivation of all manners, all dimensions of a human being, and also very much focused on the practice. So it is a balanced approach, marrying of theory and practice. So it's not as though, we're just sitting around and contemplating in silence all the time. That's a bit of a joke, but typical, the sort of what I call bread and butter courses from education are selected, and they take up what, six courses. So yes, the students do 6 courses, and most of the, well, it's actually offered one course per semester. So entire thing will take up a 7 semesters. I'm losing the count of it. Isn't it 7? Like the 6 courses,
6 semesters.
6 semesters, right? And it concludes with the traditionally known comp exam, although it's not really exam, more of a community celebration of learning. So that's a overview. And maybe Charles, can you run down the titles of the courses? Maybe that would be helpful.
Okay, I can do that. Before I get to that, though, I'm just going to add a little bit more sort of context and background. And if any of you have looked on the web page that the graduate program's website has for our program, and if you haven't found it yet, an easy way to find it is just go to Google and put in SFU Education Contemplative Inquiry 2021, and that will, the first hit will be this the web page that the graduate programs has for this program. And one of the things that, as Hee-Soon was saying, you know, contemplative inquiry now is a rapidly growing field. There's a lot of interest. There's been a lot of interest in mindfulness and meditation practices. There's been a lot of research done on this neuroscience. I'm sure you've all heard of the neuroscience around meditation and how it impacts the cognitive functioning in the brain. It is one of the fastest growing fields of academic inquiry currently. We have all been involved ourselves in publishing in this field, so we do our own forms of research. And our program is designed, as you can see on this website, to fill this hunger that's out there for contemplative perspectives and practices. Not only does meditation and contemplative inquiry, not only do they offer a lot of benefits, you know, in terms of health and so on, but increasingly we see people asking the big questions, you know, what am I doing here? Where do I want to go with my life? These are the kinds of questions that contemplative inquiry is designed to address. And so we are creating a space within the academy to do that very thing. As Hee-Soon also mentioned, the contemplative traditions go back millennia, you know, the wisdom traditions of both East and West. Sometimes people don't consider that in the West, the work of Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle, they helped provide the foundations for contemplative inquiry. Their work informed the Christian tradition, even the Judeo-Christian traditions, both of them. We have the work of Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, Hinduism, Islam, Sikhism. All of these traditions, all of these wisdom traditions have contributed over millennia such incredible teachings, and let me say research, really rigorous research that we might not consider formal academic research, but literally these are forms of research. And so we have millennia of information and data that inform the kind of work we do. And students love working in this program. They find it incredibly fulfilling. And of course, that is immensely fulfilling for us as faculty. And we put a lot of effort into creating an educational container, if you will, a space, a sort of relational space where we can literally hang out together in an academic sense and explore these dimensions. Education 833. It's called Social and Moral Philosophy in Education. Hee-Soon teaches that course. There you can see it on the screen. Hee-Soon, do you want to say anything about that course? Just a few words about that course?
As you can see, it says philosophy in education. I am a philosopher by training. However, I have gone completely interdisciplinary, and even transdisciplinary at this point. And that's okay, because philosophy in its origin was interdisciplinary. I mean, they didn't talk about different disciplines anyway, totally holistic, yes. So I bring in anything from neuroscience, I'm rather up on that domain of learning, to Zen work and poetry, and all is mixed in. And the point is that this course addresses certain competencies that we need to develop, which is social and moral competencies, a kind of jargon, I guess. Capacity to be agentic socially and morally. So that's what this course is about. Yeah.
Mhm. Right. Thank you, Hee-Soon. I'm just going to add one thing that I forgot to mention earlier. I talked about contemplative traditions of East and West. I neglected to include, of course, the indigenous contemplative traditions, which also stretch back millennia. In fact, many of the other traditions of East and West have their roots in indigenous pedagogies and indigenous ways of being in the world and living in the world and seeing the world. And so I want to acknowledge the indigenous perspectives globally, and of course here in Canada. I'm going to jump ahead a little here to segue into the Education 823 course, Curriculum and Instruction in an Individual Teaching Specialty. That is taught by Dr. Vicki Kelly, who is a widely acknowledged indigenous scholar in our faculty. Students love working at this. And it's not just a theoretical course. You will be actually doing artistic practices. She's a renowned artist as well. And so you will be engaged in all kinds of indigenous perspectives, indigenous practices. Students really enjoy that. It's a very embodied, hands-on course, literally and figuratively. You'll be doing artwork, you'll be doing indigenous chanting and working with song, drumming, all kinds of indigenous practices, as well as reading works by renowned indigenous artists and scholars. The jumping back to term 2, Education 816, developing educational programs and practices for diverse and educational settings. I teach that course. I'm currently teaching it right now. And this course, those of you who have been involved in education, and all of you have, of course, this is an opportunity to learn about the actual development of educational programs. So we focus on the principles of designing programs. And so you have an opportunity to literally work on any kind of a program that you might like to design, whether it's literally a lesson plan, a lesson unit, a unit in a curriculum plan, or a whole program, regardless of what kind of an educational institution it might be in. And note that it says for diverse educational settings. So we consider all kinds of educational settings: formal, informal, adult education, K-12 education, post-secondary education. And you know, we've had students in all who represent all kinds of educational settings. And so that's what that course is about. In the summer, in the 3rd semester, you would be taking the Education 843 course, Embodiment and Curriculum Theory. This is another beloved course with the students. This is taught by Dr. Celeste Snowber. And she, again, is a renowned scholar in embodiment, one of the world's leading scholars. She just presented a large conference that went global, embodiment conference. So you will be working in and through the body as a source of knowledge. And so again, this is a very hands-on course, a lot of movement, working with the body, a lot of writing work, really an enjoyable course. And as Hee-Soon and Lori mentioned earlier, our whole program has a holistic orientation to it. So we work not only with the intellect, but with the emotions, with aesthetics and beauty, with art, with our ethics, you know, as you know, the 833 course, with ethics, ethical development, with relationships, with the body and through movement and so on. So it's the whole, it's body, mind, and spirit, if you will, body, mind, heart, and spirit. So that's what the Education 843 course is about. The fourth semester in the fall, you will be taking Education 820. This is current issues in curriculum and pedagogy. Dr. Kamari Beck teaches this course. And you're exploring, I've also taught this course numerous times. This is where you'll be exploring issues around curriculum, i.e. what we teach, and pedagogy, i.e. how we teach. All the current issues around that, theory and curriculum development, theories and pedagogical practice, theories and assessment in relationships between students, teachers, and knowledge. Again, a really fascinating course for everyone. And then in the final semester, you will take the 904 fieldwork and 833 comprehensive exam. We knit these two courses together. Lori, because you teach that course, do you want to say a few words about that?
Sure, just briefly, and then what I'd like to do is see if there's any questions. Well, I have one sort of philosophical statement to make, if you like, about how I got involved in this, and then we'll take any questions you have, because there's a lot of information here. So the final course, we call it fieldwork, as Charles said, and this is, in a way, we call this the sort of 4 C's of the whole program, and one of the C's is to consolidate all the learning you've had in your previous 5 courses. The second one is to collaborate, the second C, and that would be collaborate with your colleagues in the program to take your learning to a new stage. And the third is to connect, and that's about all the readings, the text, the videos, the discussions, to try and connect in some way to make some kind of holistic picture of all the learning you've taken. And then finally, the final C, as Charles alluded to earlier, around the so-called comps, is the celebration of your learning. Because really it's called the comprehensive exam, which is a misnomer in that it's not an exam in the conventional sense we think of that, but it's really a celebration of your learning and a way for you to share your learning with the rest of us. So that's how I would describe that class. And again, it comes at the end of the 2-year journey you have. So I want to just make a quick statement about how I got involved in this initially and and then we'll turn it over to you for questions. So it fits into with my own personal background. I was in the K-12 system for 31 years, did every job in the system from teacher to acting superintendent of schools in Vancouver. And then I've been at SFU in a leadership position for the last 10 years. And one of the things I found out early on was about one of the major fundamental deficiencies, if you will, in the system, and that is dealing with a major aspect of our lives. And when we started this program, some of my colleagues who were in management with me were asking, well, what is this contemplative program all about? And I came up with what I called a quick elevator pitch, which I'll share with you now. There's 2 aspects to it, or 2 parts to it. The first is the premise that the quality of our exterior life, our professional life, our personal life, is largely a function of the quality of our interior life. And the second premise is the quality of our interior life, our thoughts, our feelings, our sensations, all these ruminations we have all day long. The quality of that, it can be greatly enhanced through regular contemplative practices. And Jesus alluded to what they might be. This is not a program in mindfulness. It's a look at the notion of being contemplative in life, which is much deeper and much more pervasive than simply a course in mindfulness. So these 2 ways of looking, what we attempt to do in this program is to address what we all feel is a structural deficit, if you will, in most educational programs and institutions, is they fail to acknowledge we have an inner life. And that inner life, however you want to characterize that, spiritual, just cognitive, internal life, however you wish to refer to it, it has a profound influence on our outer life. And we try to validate and illuminate that with conventional academic courses as well. So that's a lot. So maybe Charles, Jesus, and I, we can just try and answer your questions now. So if we could open up the floor to any questions, and Trina, if there's anything you have to say, please chime in as well.
So the admission requirements for this program include that you need to have a bachelor's degree, an undergraduate degree with strong academic performance. We're looking for your degree, your most recent degree, that you would have a cumulative GPA of 3.0 over a 4.33 scale. And it needs to come from a recognized university or the equivalent. Candidates also require strong evidence of their exemplary and varied professional experience. That means we're looking for someone who has been in the workforce. Typically, we ask for about 2 years of experience minimum. We will also, I should have mentioned, look at your most recent 60 credits. And if your CGPA for your degree is a little low, if you had done better in your most recent 60 credits, then we'll look for a 3.33 over a 4.33 scale for that. Admissions are, as has been repeated many times, very holistic in the approach that we use. We look not only at your academics, but at your writing skills, your professional background, your capacity to undertake graduate study courses. That's often demonstrated through the references that you receive. And we do also consider non-traditional applicants. So if you are perhaps a little low in your CGPA, but you're strong in other areas, then we will consider your application, because as has been stated, it is a very holistic approach that we take in admitting students for the program. There are many tools available to our students, and some of which are unique to our students, and we really like to make note of them. That includes, there's extensive opportunities to make use of the resources of our library at SFU. In fact, the library has something set up called Telebook, whereby they will do a free mailing of some books to you at your home, providing a return envelope that is prepaid as well. Books for graduate students are typically allowed to be checked out for the entire term as well, unless there's some reason it needs to be returned earlier than that. So you have a lot of availability to you of resources through our library. There's also the Student Learning Commons, where you can get writing support, and there are things like the Office of Research Ethics and different things where you can go with questions about requirements that are in place for you and standards that you should be following. And as you, I'm sure, have seen this evening with the 3 faculty sponsors, they are an amazing resource. They're very passionate about this program, having it developed themselves, and they are wonderful people to communicate with. So for any questions that you do not receive a response to tonight, please do not hesitate to reach out to any of the 4 of us, but they are very available for program content. They do have the administrative background as well, but I am very ready to respond to any administrative types of questions that you might have. There's also the Graduate Studies Office and the Grad Students Center. There's also student services and your peers within your program. The beauty of this program, as it says here, is the cohort model. And I think that can't be spoken of too highly. It's a great opportunity for you. You develop a group of peers who become your resource for research, for emotional support, for just bouncing ideas off of one another. It's a great opportunity for you to have this cohort program.
Rena, I could just mention one thing you said before you get to the money, is to back up to that previous slide. One additional benefit we'll have starting next September is we will have a graduate research commons right on the campus, where if we're back in classes, right on the campus at Vancouver. And it's,
Wow.
we talk here about student learning commons. Well, we'll actually have a graduate research common space, a physical space in Harbor Center, part of the campus, where you can go, a place to hang out, a place to take seminars, a place to get help with thesis writing, writing reports, research studies, meeting any of us. So it's a great physical site. The brand new one we'll have up and running for next September. Sorry, Karina.
That's a good point. And actually, this slide, we haven't updated it, but education has a research hub as well that is available to support you. Also, if you are applying for funding, they might be able to assist you with doing some writing towards that and that kind of thing. So there are a lot of resources available to you.
I just want to add one little thing very quickly, Trina, because I'm like you guys, I'm passionate about this. SFU offers so many incredible resources. Just yesterday, a student was telling me she was in one of the writing workshops offered by our faculty, and she absolutely loved it. She found it so helpful. The library is fantastic. The librarians, the research commons, it's all fantastic. It's amazing. It's just phenomenal.
This is a specialty fee program. Because of the small cohort nature of it and the resources that are required to run the program, it does cost you a little bit more. It's about $3,000 per term right now for the tuition. That tuition is tax deductible. It's for 6 terms, and we typically have seen about a 2% fee increase each September for the programs. So right now, the 2-year program is costing just over $18,000 in tuition. There are additional fees each term, approximately $400 per term, which does include student activity and the different access to different resources that are available to you, as well as a graduation fee. There is also the UPass as part of that, which is a required fee, unfortunately, because it is an in-person program. But if that's a benefit that you will enjoy, then you will value it highly because it's very worthwhile. And finally, there is the health and dental benefits package available to graduate students. If you currently have a similar program, then you can opt out of that. It is something you would do once each year when you join the program. The resources available to you are a little bit limited because it's an MEd rather than a thesis program. So you don't have opportunity to apply to graduate entrance funding or that type of thing. But there are many private and external awards available. There are bursaries that you can apply to. In Canada, you can, and BC, you can also use your RRSP, your lifelong learning plan. You might be able to take advantage of some employer sponsorship or a line of credit through your bank. Unfortunately, because this program does cater to working professionals, at this time it is not eligible for government student loans. But there are other opportunities, and we do have information on the Faculty of Education website about financial resources and opportunities as well. And with respect to the question about the TA positions, I'm not familiar with TA positions, but I do know that on the Faculty of Education website, there are links to job opportunities that present themselves as well. Another resource that's available to grad students at SFU in the Faculty of Education is some travel awards. There's a conference travel award if you're presenting a poster at a conference of up to $400 per year. There's also the Education Graduate Student Association Professional Development Grant, which is for up to $400 a year. And then the SFU Graduate Student Society has also got a professional development grant. It's only available to you once during your program, and it's for up to $499. at this time, with the current situation with COVID, in-person conferences have been suspended. So most likely this funding would not be something you would avail yourself of, but it is a possibility for once this program starts. So we're mentioning it now. Okay, the application process itself is fairly straightforward. Be sure when you go online to look for the program which is not contemplative inquiry. The program that you're going to look for is community MEd, and then the specialization within there is the contemplative inquiry MEd. So this is what what I have on the screen now is what you would see when you go through the application system, and those are the options you're going to be choosing. You need to complete the application online, and if you have any transcripts that are from outside of Canada, then the fee is going to be $125 for the application. But if all of your transcripts are domestic or Canadian, then the fee for the application is $90. You will need to submit your application and pay the application fee before you will be able to upload any documents to your application. So please take note of that. Another question that we get very often is about the referees that you are going to be asking to submit references on your behalf. We are asking you to provide 3 references, 2 of which we're asking be academic and 1 professional. If you need to adjust that ratio, you can, but I would strongly recommend that if you have 2 professional references, be sure that they can speak to your ability to pursue graduate level work. Maybe someone who has observed you in professional development opportunities through your work, for example, would be a good person. Or someone who has mentored you and seen your academic inquiry and your approach to learning. That type of person would be a stronger reference for you. They also will be asked by our system to submit the reference online. Once you submit your application, an email is generated by our system to each of your referees, and they must enter the reference themselves. They can upload a letter. They can also fill in some text on the online form. We will not accept the reference directly from you, but if the person is having difficulty with submitting their reference on your behalf, then never hesitate to give them my contact information, and I'll be happy to go into your application. What I do really is I will go into your application, log in as if I were that person, upload the document that they have sent me, and then they will get an email confirming that their reference has been submitted. Please be sure to contact your referees in advance so that they know that this is going to be happening, because the references are due by our application deadline. Okay, the application documents that you need to upload include an original transcript, or an official, what you would call an official transcript, from every post-secondary institution that you've attended, even if it's 1 course. The only exception to that is, it's actually a 2-fold exception. If you've attended Simon Fraser University, then we will access your transcript. You do not need to upload it. You're free to do so if you wish, but we will also replace that with a transcript that we will download. And then the other possible exception is if you've gone on exchange or you've had transfer credit from another institution, and that transfer credit is shown on your transcript with grades, with the grades that you received. So for example, if you have a UBC transcript and you have transfer credit there, their transcript doesn't show the grades you received in those courses, so you will still need to provide the other transcript. having said that, we do prefer to get all official transcripts, if at all possible. You also are asked to submit a letter of intent, which states why you wish to pursue grad studies and specifically why you wish to pursue this program. Please identify this program in your letter of intent so that we are sure that you're speaking to the program you're actually applying to. We ask for an academic writing sample. It should be recent. Normally, we ask that it be something you've written within the last 5 years. A question that I get all the time is someone says, I don't have one that is that recent. You are free to go into a paper that you have submitted previously and update it, make it more recent by just doing a bit of work to check for some new citations, reviewing it and seeing if the school of thought might have changed slightly, or, you know, update it in some way to make it more recent. Be sure that you cite yourself on the cover sheet for it so that you're not self-plagiarizing. You need to cite where you originally submitted it. If you don't have anything, you are free to write a paper showing a sustained written argument on a topic of your choice. We want a maximum of, we say here 15 to 20 pages, but I suspect it could be on the lower end of that. And that includes the citation pages, so your bibliography, that type of thing. So you don't have to be too concerned about the length, but please don't submit something that's 5 pages in length, because that is shorter than we need to be able to assess your writing abilities in an effective way. We also ask for your resume or CV. Pretty straightforward. The official transcripts, we actually also require one that comes either directly from your institution or in a sealed institution envelope. You have the option of submitting a hard copy of this, or at this time, because of the pandemic, SFU has sped up our process and we're now accepting some official digital transcripts. Digital transcripts need to be mailed to GradApp, GRADAP @sfu.ca. If they're Canadian transcripts, then it can just be sent from the institution to that address. If they're on an international transcript, then we may need it to be an encrypted digital transcript coming directly from the institution. But there is a website listed here that you can look at, and this link is also on our website. That will provide you some more information. This is fairly new information for us, so we don't have a huge amount of detail available. The one change this year is the address. If you're going to submit a paper transcript, it's no longer coming to us at the Surrey campus, which is where the administrative office is housed. They're now being sent directly to our graduate and postdoctoral studies office at the Burnaby campus. The address is listed here, but it's also on our website. Application deadline is March 15th. We typically allow an extra week for documents to be received, but we really would prefer if everything is in as soon as possible. We do not begin evaluation of applications until everything is in, and we at least have a significant enough number of applications complete to be able to do a good evaluation. So the earlier you get it in, the better for us and for yourselves. Full information about the application process and a link to the online application can be found at our program website. The link is listed here, and as I said, there's the March 15th deadline. It takes us about 6 to 8 weeks to evaluate applications, and you should be receiving an email notification sometime shortly after that. The email comes from Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies. Sometimes it takes them a little longer, and we're not sure what it will look like next year because everything is so different with the pandemic. And there are restrictions as far as us accessing campus. So for example, if you send in a paper transcript, it may take us a little bit longer to match that to your file because we have limited access. Once you do receive the offer of admission, then you have 2 weeks within which you would need to accept the offer and pay the $250 admission deposit. That deposit does get applied to your tuition for your first term. So it's there, but it is a non-refundable deposit if you accept and then need to change your mind. Just repeat, due to the ever-changing situation with COVID, we are not able at this time to provide information on the program delivery modes for fall 2021. At this time, the courses are hoped to be in person, but they may be delivered remotely or some hybrid of that. If programs are to be delivered remotely in any of these terms, we will inform applicants as soon as any announcements are made by the university. And the university has been trying to make those announcements about 1 term ahead of time, or at least before enrollment starts for the following term. Once in-person classes are permitted at SFU, you can be assured that we will make this an in-person course or classes, and they will resume for us. We do have a website as well where you can gain more information about COVID, and this link is on our website. So there, that's the end of the presentation. And thank you for attending our session.